So I have a question for you. If you haven't done this already, take a look at the listing of our videos on our home channel, the home page of our channel, and look at the top most looked at videos on our channel. It's really interesting that the top two videos are basically the same image, right? They're a picture of it's a picture of three guys who are shirtless, right? So it's not unsurprising to us that that is what is attracting people to our page are the images that are on the cover of those particular videos. But I have a question for you. Do you think that gay men have an unrealistic expectation of how our bodies should look? Let us know in the comments. Do you think that gay men have an unrealistic expectation of how we think that our bodies should look? The reason why this topic is coming up is on Queer Money on Queer Money episode 17. We had Aaron Guy, who is a personal trainer and a very physically fit looking individual.
He's a bodybuilder.
Right. He's a body of a bodybuilder. We had him on the podcast back then on the very first year talking about getting back into fitness in your 40s. And when we re-listened to this episode so we could do this Queer Money follow-up, John and I were kind of surprised at what kind of caught our attention around the beginning of the discussion. So we want to kind of dive into this idea of, is body positivity a joke in the gay community? Are we hypocritical about our feelings about body positivity? So before we dive in, remember, we'd love for you to give a thumbs up to this video. Remember to subscribe to our channel and make sure you click on the notifications so that when we go live every day, you get a notification. You can come over here and join us in the conversation. But let's get back to this whole idea of body image in the gay community.
Yeah, so I think it's important to provide some context here. You know, I think this unrealistic expectations that we all have this sort of supermodel, a Captain America body, sort of came out of the 80s and 90s, mostly because of the HIV/AIDS crisis. You know, in the 70s, people weren't fat, and that was not an issue.
Right. Well, it's so funny if you go back and you look at porn. From
I don't look at porn. When are you looking at porn, David?
Well, you know what? We watched a documentary about a porn shop in New York, this kind of cultural iconic store, and they showed a couple of clips, not necessarily the sex, but they showed a couple of clips from stuff from the 70s when this shop was really starting to.
It's actually L.A.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was L.A. But I remember these. And then I also remember the scene in The Kids Are All Right when the two lesbians, and I can't remember who the characters were that now, or the women playing those two characters, they would actually watch porn from the 70s to turn themselves on, so I have these little images in my head about porn from the 70s. Also, I probably watched a little bit when I was a kid in somebody's basement, right? But the whole porn back then was all the men, especially mustaches, lean bodies. They
Moppy
weren't
hair.
Muscular, right? So it was, yeah, exactly.
So, so we had the HIV/AIDS crisis, and one of the ways that sort of men who fell victim to the HIV/AIDS tried to combat the appearance of that, because HIV and AIDS can make you lose a significant amount of weight, have you lose a lot of muscle mass, and all of a sudden you look unhealthily skinny, and people can tell that you're sick. So one of the ways to combat that was that these men would hit the gym extra hard, eat a considerable amount of calories, do all the protein shakes, and in many cases, many of the men were actually on steroids, and sometimes prescribed by their doctors to help them maintain
a lot
some
of
muscle.
them were being prescribed.
So they kind of about the time that Arnold Schwarzenegger was becoming super famous, sort of all these gay men were getting these sort of super muscular bodies, and that sort of created the archetype of what the ideal gay male body was.
Right.
Oops, I'm like you.
Oh, geez. Now it's your turn.
And then, and then that we kind of got a little bit more normalized. We kind of dialed it down a little bit in the early 2000s, but then sort of we've kind of culturally there is this expectation that we all have to be body positive, and we're not allowed to shame anybody, right? There's and we all have to love everybody. We can't judge them or not want to be with them because of the shape of their body, how they look, and how they how attractive they are to us. And so there's this competing forces of you've got to be uber woke when it comes to how you perceive other people's body and about how you perceive your own body. But then what's interesting is what we're finding is that the data isn't showing that that's actually the case. It's a big facade.
Right. Well, and it's not just the data. I mean, anecdotally, we know this as online business owners. We know online business owners that have a website and content that oftentimes caters to the LGBT community, that caters to especially to gay men. When we post an article where the lead image is of men who are either shirtless, muscular, attractive, fit, the number of people who click through on that article from social media is oftentimes 3, 4, 5, 10 times what it would be if we used a normalized looking individual. And so it makes sense then from our perspective, why when you go to places like Advocate, Out, Queerty, Hornet, all of these websites, they're just packed full of images of men who are shirtless, ripped, in bikinis. They're
washboard abs,
right?
There's unrealistic arms,
right? And they are online businesses with the intent of the more clicks. This is how most of them get paid, right? The more clicks that they get on an article, the more eyeballs they have on that page, the more money they make, because that's how they're paid, right? Just like the person who makes a widget gets paid twice as much for making 2 widgets than 1 widget, they get paid more for the number of clicks that they have on those articles, right? And so they want to put information or images out there that will get people to click.
Well, it's the age-old strategy for advertising.
Right.
Sex sells, right?
Right.
And if you put whether you put a hot woman or a hot man on something, it's going to get eyeballs, clicks, purchases, engagements, whatever. And we're seeing that with our own content.
Right. It is an interesting dichotomy of what we tell ourselves that we want, right? We tell ourselves that we want body positivity, that we want the community to accept us for who we are. But then what do? We go out there and we frequent and we click on the images, the websites, the porn that is all contradictory to what we are actually telling ourselves.
And what we're telling, the expectations that we're trying to set for others.
Right.
We're telling everybody else that you need to stop body shaming. You need to be body positive of everybody, regardless of whatever size or shape they're in. But as you said, the clicks are showing that our community is still obsessed with the archetype, beautiful, gay, muscly body, like Captain America.
Right.
And we did that poll we recently did a poll in a large gay group on Facebook, and we asked what was the question?
So I asked what is the number one thing that is preventing you from having the fabulous life that you would like to have? And I started off the list with a few things. I put down body, money, education, where you live, and there were probably about 5 or 6 things, and I think the list probably grew to about maybe 10 because folks could add their own comment or their own suggestion in. But by far, 2/3 of the votes on that poll, the number one item was people saying that they wished that they had a better body, that their body, their physical image, the way they looked was the number one reason that they didn't have the feeling about having a fabulous life, which is very interesting, right? Because we know that I bet you 99% of those people on that who answered that poll, and I'm talking about there were hundreds of people who answered this. Those people are going to be ones who are going to be telling us that we need to have body positivity in our community, but is that what they're really telling themselves?
Right. Well, and I wonder if it's not so much what are they telling themselves, but it makes me wonder if they're receiving some sort of messages, whether they're overt messages or they're micro messages from external forces. Their actual the community, that in their real life, or their workplace or their family, that they're receiving messages that they don't look good enough.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily just what they're telling themselves when they look in the mirror, but maybe it's also messaging that they're receiving. So, we're all preaching body positivity and body acceptance, but it seems like it's more of more talking points than it is actually anything.
Right.
So it begs the question. We then are now shaming shamers.
Right.
We're shaming people for not accepting themselves. We're shaming people for not accepting other people, and then we're kind of shaming on top of the shaming. So it's almost like we're kind of layering upon layering upon layer, and it's like, you know what? If we all just could learn to stop shaming people for what they like and stop shaming ourselves for who we are and how we look, we could actually probably make a lot more progress.
Right. Yeah. Before we dive into the idea of, or the foundation of why we did the original podcast, just a reminder, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click on that notifications button so that you get our next live when we go live tomorrow. But the whole foundation of this podcast episode was the idea of going back into the gym or getting back into fitness in your 40s and 50s. And John and I talked about this. We were guests on a podcast yesterday. We talked about the 40s and 50s fade in the gay community, how it seems like gay men, when they reach that age where their age begins with the letter F, right? Somebody asks you what your age is, and as soon as that sound starts coming out of your mouth, it's like, whoop, they turn around and walk away.
And they go
right.
away.
Oh, you're too old. I don't care. Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, granted, there are some people who like an older man, right? But it's clear in our community that gay men in their 40s and 50s.
40 is fatal.
Right. And it's not, right? But what was interesting is we had this episode to talk about getting back into fitness. Aaron is a fitness trainer in LA, and he said, of course, LA is a little bit of a different place, right? We know that La La Land it's just completely different there. But he did say across the country, we're seeing more and more individuals who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who are focused on physical fitness as a means of taking care of themselves, no longer showing off, but as a way of taking care of themselves for the real reasons, for the health reasons. And what was interesting, I got an email today from someone sharing some detail about retirees. And one of the data points that I found so interesting was that 62% of people who said they had to retire before they wanted to retire, it was because of health reasons. They had some sort of physical ailment that made them quit their job before they were really ready to quit their job. So I'm curious, or I'm wondering if getting back into the gym in our 40s and 50s and 60s is a way of extending our life and our career, right? Getting back into the gym is a way of helping wake up our bodies to the fact that we can and need to live physically fit a little bit longer so that we can earn a little bit more money and not have to retire before earning years are over.
Yeah, and that was actually Aaron's point. He's like, not everybody in LA is a movie star. Not everybody in LA is a bodybuilder, but there is value in working out regularly, and that doesn't always have to be at the gym, but it does increase muscle mass, which does improve strength. It does improve your cardiovascular system, which, those two are very often the reasons why people get sick. They either hurt a muscle, break a bone, or tear a ligament, or have some sort of heart problem, and that's very often why people have to prematurely stop working. But then it also releases endorphins, right? And so that improves people's moods. And that, especially right now with the mental health issues we're having in this country, compounded with what we're dealing with in COVID, all the more reason to work out. It doesn't always have to be at the gym. But to Aaron's point, we don't all have to strive for that God bod, and we don't have to expect that we're going to receive it or get that body, and we shouldn't expect other people, especially in their 40s and 50s, to have that sort of God bod, because it's almost unrealistic, and we're creating unrealistic expectations, and we're creating undue mental health, which kind of is what precipitated the discussion we had earlier about maybe we just stop shaming people who shame people and stop shaming people who have a preference of what they like. Let people just be who they are and like what they like, and everybody can just be happy.
Right. And I want to remind folks, don't give up on exercise, because there are so many different benefits to exercise. Exercise is not just so you can have that quote unquote perfect body, right? The real reasons for exercise are improving your body physically. And that means both the outward appearance of your body, but also the mental health aspects of your body. Working out literally has been shown, study after study after study after study shows that people who exercise, whether that's taking a 20-minute walk, doing some yoga, doing some light lifting, the individuals who do that on a regular basis, their mental health is way, way better when they do that. So if you are concerned about your mental health, or you struggle with mental health issues and you're not working out, give it a try. For me personally, I know that my day is so much better when I get up in the morning and either go for a walk or go for a run, or we go to the gym upstairs in the building where we live and we do some sort of activity, because it gets my blood flowing. It gets blood flowing through my kidneys, which helps filter out all the crap in my body. It helps get blood flowing through my liver, which does the exact same thing. Literally, it helps you shit so that you are actually getting rid of the food that you ate before. All of that is your body going through the processes that it needs to go through to stay healthy. And we know that there's a direct connection between a physically healthy body and a mentally healthy person. There's a direct connection there. So if you're struggling with mental health issues, I don't want to say that this is the only cure, but it can be a supplement, because it has definitely helped me.
Absolutely. So join us tomorrow when we cover Queer Money episode 18, titled Curtis Wong, From Madonna to Ariana. Curtis is a writer for HuffPost and Billboard, and he has worked for Ariana Huffington and has partnered with Madonna. And we will talk about all that on tomorrow's Queer Money Follow-Up 18. So thank you for joining us for another Queer Money Follow-Up. Here's your Queer Money Follow-Up takeaway from this particular episode. Subscribe to the Queer Money Podcast at deadfreeguys.com/QM. Then let us know in the comments below if you believe that we in the gay community have unrealistic expectations of what our bodies should look like. I think, I know I have my opinions, so we're curious to see what your opinions are.
We'll share ours in the comments too.
Yeah. And give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel. Please set notifications to this channel so you know when we do our lives. And lastly, once again, subscribe to the Queer Money Podcast at deadfreeguys.com/QM. Thank you, and we will see you tomorrow.